Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through some contract players who we expect will boom in 2025 for your fantasy football teams. If you tune in to our show, you will hear us often say that, what, Joe? Get the phrase.
Ball out so you can cash out.
That's right. You're going to ball out so you can cash out. So these are going to be players who are in their contract year. We could have picked some other ones who are more prominent right now, like a Terry McLaurin or a James Cook. But Joe and I both feel like there could be a strong possibility that these players get their deals done prior to the start of the season. So we focused on 5 players who we haven't heard a lot about and who we think may be playing this season with no extension in mind and really looking to possibly getting re-signed in the offseason, so they'll have extra motivation to do even better. So we're going to be talking about our top 5 players. So starting off with our first player, Joe, this is a guy who you were really excited about last year, and you drafted him in a lot of leagues, I felt like, but he ended up getting injured and he got burned. So I don't feel like you're as excited, and a lot of people aren't as excited, but I think he's interesting. Running back Isiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Steve. I was absolutely gung-ho, but Isiah Pacheco last year, bought him in most of my auctions, grabbed him in, like you said, most of the drafts that I did participate in. But you know what? Even despite the disappointing year, because he did get injured, though, people are kind of fading him, and I do think there's a strong possibility. Like if Isiah Pacheco is fully healthy, I still think he'll be the primary running back there in Kansas City. People are worried about Elijah Mitchell, the rookie Brashard Smith as well there. Kareem Hunt is still there. But if Isiah Pacheco is healthy, they've shown to just, give him the opportunities, and I think he'll still be the leader.
Yeah, I mean, right now on ESPN's cheat sheet here, only looking at $4 for an auction price. That's drastically different than what you would have had to pay for him a year ago at this time. I think you paid in the 20s or 30s. You were in a bidding war to be able to draft him. So I think you're right. I mean, depth chart wise, he's going to be the RB1. Does Brashard Smith possibly have some receiving opportunities? But I mean, Pacheco, that was never really his game anyways. You just want him to get a lot of touchdowns. Kareem Hunt definitely affects that, but Kareem Hunt's getting older. And he didn't even look that efficient, even towards the end of last year. And looking at camp, I don't know if you've seen any. I know you kind of take camp with a grain of salt, but I even have watched a few practice highlights of him at training camp, and Pacheco looks like he's kind of back. Like he's got a burst to his step these days.
Yeah, I've been seeing those as well. I mean, that's the thing. That's where I think people are absolutely fading him, and reasonably so. And people like myself got burned last year with the injury. But if Pacheco is fully healthy, just the way that guy runs, and is able to break the tackles, and he can create those plays, like you said. I mean, he did. It will hurt him if Brashard Smith or Elijah Mitchell kind of eat into that receiving role. I mean, that wasn't like the biggest part, but he did get a decent amount of opportunities there. But for whatever it's worth, though, for him still being RB1 on a good Kansas City Chiefs offense, he's definitely worth the $4.
Yeah, and I think he just wasn't the same player after he tried to come back from that leg injury.
He probably shouldn't have tried to come back and just stayed rehabbing it. I mean, I know they wanted him there, but he just looked like a shell of himself.
Yeah, and it showed, right? I mean, he averaged 4.9 yards per carry in 2022, 4.6 yards per carry in 2023, and 3.7 in 2024. And I think if you look at that, a part of that is when he came back, it just wasn't the same.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't the same player when he came back.
But you're right. I mean, in 2022, he wasn't really involved in the receiving game. In 2023, he had 49 targets. He was on pace to doing a little bit worse from what I can see here. But ultimately, I think he's a good price, and he's a guy who I think definitely has some upside. And I think in the contract year, he could have an opportunity to boom here.
All right, Steve, our next player we're going to talk about here is going to be running back Breece Hall with the New York Jets. What do you think about this situation here?
Well, you're definitely going to be pounding the table thinking it's more of a boom than me. I'm a little. You've always been more of a Breece Hall guy than me. But last year, I think I kind of closed the gap a little bit. I even might have had him a little bit higher than you in projections, but he didn't do as well. I think what kind of concerns me is, Aaron Glenn, the head coach, coming out and saying that he kind of envisions Breece Hall and Braylon Allen to be a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery type of pairing, which I don't know. Will that help or hurt Breece Hall? I mean, Breece Hall's a very explosive player, and he has had, injury issues and durability concerns. So, could it help him? Maybe he'll have, he's an explosive player. Maybe he has higher yards, yards per average rush, and has those explosive breakaway runs because he's not being used as a bell cow, and he's splitting with Braylon Allen. Or are the opportunities being taken away from him? Are they going to ride the hot hand? And is Braylon Allen going to show some juice? That's why it kind of gets me concerned. But he is in a contract year. He is younger. So, it's a possibility that, this could be a great opportunity for him to ball out, to cash out.
Yeah, I definitely think the opportunity is there for him to ball out and ultimately cash out after this season here. You hear Aaron Glenn talk about wanting to utilize him in the passing game, which if you're playing in a PPR league, I mean, I think that's music to anybody's ears. And, he is that explosive player. I mean, I think he'll obviously be that Jahmyr Gibbs style running back in this situation with the Jets. And I just think their lack of a wide receiver too really does open the door for Breece Hall and that, the pass catching game, and they're getting involved in the receiving game. I mean, outside of Garrett Wilson and Mason Taylor's dinged up at the moment. If he's not fully ready to go, like, who else are they throwing the ball to? I mean, is it, really going to be Josh Reynolds, who's currently listed as their wide receiver too?
Well, I will tell you this, and I think this is kind of crazy. You tell me. I may not be as enthusiastic about him as you are, but Joe, he's on the ESPN cheat sheet. He's going for $17. That seems like wickedly low. I mean, last year you were paying upwards of $50 for this guy last year. I mean, that seems kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, that's why, I've been more, even though like I have been a Breece Hall fan, at one point I was kind of, after last year, you're right. You definitely had him projected higher than I did. Despite me being all over him in years past, I'd kind of faded him a little bit, but right now nobody's really talking about Breece Hall, and his price is right there. I mean, and if he does ball out in this contract year, I mean, $17 is going to be a great value.
So next guy we're going to be talking about here is wide receiver Jakobi Meyers of the Las Vegas Raiders. Guy, Joe, who you think is going to boom. Another guy who I'm maybe not as keen on. I'm excited about the young guys. I like Jack Besh. I like Deontay Thornton Jr., DTJ. I think both of those guys are really showing some juice, and you got Brock Bowers. But you feel differently about Myers. Why don't you tell the folks at home here, what are you thinking about this guy?
Yeah, I just think Jakobi Meyers, I think he's still going to be the wide receiver one on this team, and there's opportunity there. And I just feel like he's going to be a great value in drafts. Nobody, like you, Steve, nobody is excited to draft this guy. But I just think, whether you're drafting snake or auction, where you're going to get this guy towards the end, you're going to be able to get him super cheap. And with Geno Smith taking over as a quarterback, and, a whole new offense. And you mentioned some other receiving options, better run game now with Ash and Genty. I think Jakobi Meyers really could have a nice year and give you a great return on the value.
I mean, look, only $5 to get him. I think he's definitely an upside play. He's definitely the most proven guy. Those guys are rookies. Who knows how they're going to do? And Geno Smith's going to have to rely on somebody. So. And he's shown that he can support. I mean, he could easily – Jakobi Meyers, I don't think he'd be a wide receiver one. Certainly a wide receiver two all day long.
Yeah, and I mean, where you're taking him $5, I mean, heck, he could, solid bench player. You play the matchups. Maybe he's a flex player for you. You can do a lot worse than Jakobi Meyers this year. And if he's extra motivated in that contract year to go ahead and have a great year, I think the opportunity is definitely there for him. All right, Steve, let's head over to the tight end position, and we're going to talk about David Njoku with the Cleveland Browns. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the quarterback position with Cleveland. Ultimately, I think Joe Flacco should get the start here. And if he does, I think Flacco, we've seen what he's been able to do with the offense before. And David Njoku, performed really well with the likes of Joe Flacco at the helm there. And, at some point, I'm sure it'll turn to a rookie. But what do we always say? rookie, young quarterback's best friend is that tight end position. And I think Njoku, despite what's going on with the quarterback room there, is going to be another good value for you, and think he should be able to turn in another solid season.
Well, I'll be interested to see how, what's reported that Shedeur Sanders is going to, be the starter here for the first preseason game for the Cleveland Browns. Should be interesting to see how he fares, and what position he's at in the depth chart. The Browns don't really make any sense. They just brought in Tyler Huntley. Now you got 5 quarterbacks on the
They
roster.
need arms. Everyone's hurt. Dylan Gabriel's hurt at the moment. So is Kenny Pickett. Shedeur Sanders was nursing a bit of a shoulder, but he's back now. So I think Huntley's just brought in for an arm here.
I see that's probably that's a good analysis, Joe. Reading the injury report there. This is one I actually agree with you on. I think Njoku, we saw what he was able to do with Joe Flacco at quarterback, and at the end of the day, $4, for David Njoku, and I mean, what are the other options? I mean, you've got Cedric Tillman, I suppose, and Jerry Jeudy, but Flacco hyper targeted him during the time when he was quarterback. So I think that David Njoku, this is a great opportunity, and an opportunity where I don't think Njoku comes back to the team. They drafted Harold Fannin Jr. I think a guy who they see as the up-and-coming replacement for David Njoku. So to me, I don't see the Browns. Maybe they do resign Njoku. I mean, there have been teams that make moves that surprise me all the time. But I could also see Njoku hitting the market and him looking to cash out.
Yeah, I could definitely see him looking for him to get out of Cleveland. And if he doesn't exactly buy into what they're doing there, and maybe, look to get an opportunity to go to a winning team and maybe have a chance at the Super Bowl.
The last guy we're going to be talking about here, and of course, we ended on this note. A guy who I have to. It's going to be tight end Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. A guy who is probably one of the most controversial players out there. A guy who is uber talented with a ton of potential, and he just has never really been able to bring it all together besides his rookie year, you could say. Now, most people are out on this guy. They've just, and I myself, I have chased after him thinking that he was going to be, this great player, and he's burned me multiple times. Now, on the ESPN cheat sheet, he's $1, tight end 17. Now we're hearing these reports of Michael Penix and Kyle Pitts are golf buddies, and how they're, Michael Penix is saying, like, we're going to give Kyle the ball a lot, and they have this, great relationship. I'm kind of getting suckered in again. I don't know about you. I think it may be working on me. I just look at the room around him. I mean, you've got Drake London, who you saw how targeted he was with Michael Penix. Besides that, like, who else you really got? I mean, you got Darnell Mooney. I mean, Arthur Smith, I would think, well, he's no longer, his influence is no longer there. Yeah. But even still, last year, we didn't expect this guy to be a special McLeod. Yeah, Ray-Ray McLeod. I was like, what's going on here? How is Ray-Ray McLeod, doing better than Kyle Pitts? It was just like mind-blowing. But, you can't even blame Arthur Smith because it was Raheem Morris last year. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? You keep me honest on Kyle Pitts here.
Yeah, I mean, you have been a glutton for punishment with Kyle Pitts, but the thing of it was, for $1, I think it's worth the swing. If you don't get one of the top tight ends, tight ends is completely a crapshoot anyways. So maybe you take a couple of tight ends and see which ones pans out. But I mean, I think taking a swing, I mean, if you really get Pitts for $1, he could be worth it. Maybe something does change. Michael Penix, first full season here taking over, and maybe they are like really trying to get this guy the ball more. And Kyle Pitts will obviously be motivated to put on a show, and maybe, whether it's to resign with the Falcons or for the 31 other teams that'll be watching him.
Yeah, man, at the end of the day, if you punt the tight end position, you draft him for $1, and if he stinks, cut him. Go find somebody else. Tucker Kraft was out there in last year, and some other players. So just cut him. So to me, the opportunity cost to take him is not that much.
No, And that's the thing. And in in years past with him, people felt burned by him because they're buying the hype and they're spending a bunch of money to to buy and win Kyle Pitts. But if you can truly get him for $1, I mean, he's worth the swing. He's still got that same upside everyone was drooling over before. And who knows, maybe Michael Penix turns this Atlanta offense into something.
So that does it for this episode. We went through our top 5 contract players that we think are going to boom so that they can get their money at the end of the year. If you haven't done so already, check out our most recent episode where we talked about our $1 auction draft steals. You're going to regret missing, so you're going to want to check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.